Every side strives all season to try and win the ultimate glory, which is of course the Premiership. To win the Premiership though, you must first win enough games to make the finals, as to go all the way, you need to be in it to win it. But while making the top 8 might be first priority, finishing in the top 4 is where the contenders really want to be. Of course, the top 4 teams have a double chance, giving the sides a little bit of insurance if they happen to have a bad day at the office in the qualifying final. And based on past history, if you want to win the flag, the top 4 is the place you need to be. In the entire history of the VFL AFL competition, only 3 teams ever won the Premiership from outside the top 4. Melbourne from 6th in 1900, Adelaide from 5th in 1998, and the Bulldogs from 7th in 2016, showing how rare a feat it is. Finishing in the top 4 also means that if you win the qualifying final, it gives you the reward of a week off, or the loser has to play another pressure do-or-die game. It gives you some time to refresh and extra opportunities for players to recover from injuries. There are so many variables in elimination games that any advantage you can get is so important. This has made a huge difference on helping sides make the grand final. Between 2017 and 2015, out of the 18 winners of qualifying finals, 17 of those ended up making the grand final. The only time in that 9-year period, a side who didn't win in week 1 of the finals made a grand final was Hawthorn in 2015, after beating Fremantle in the prelim, who had knocked off Sydney 2 weeks prior. It must be noted that Hawthorn side was a really special team, having been in the previous 3 grand finals and winning the last 2 flags. It took a team in the middle of a dynasty to break that streak, showing how much of an advantage winning the qualifying final was. But before the 2016 season, something changed. Almost overnight, winning the qualifying final didn't seem as big as an advantage as it once was. Remember, in the previous 9 years, 17 out of 18, or 94% of sides who won the qualifying final, made the granny. Then suddenly in 2016, Geelong and the Giants both won their qualifying finals, but fell in the preliminary final. The Bulldogs' fairy tale win from 7th was the main story that season, and there wasn't too much attention on the preliminary final situation. It also looks like it would return to normality when in 2017, both Richmond and Adelaide won their qualifying finals and made the grand final. However, since then, Richmond in 2018, Collingwood in 2019, and both Port and Brisbane in 2020 have lost prelim finals after winning their qualifying finals. This has meant that after a rate of 94% of qualifying final wins becoming grand final appearances between 2007 and 2015, is down to just 40% over the last 5 years. The massive advantage of winning the qualifying final seems to have vanished, but why? Now, based on the title of this video, I'm sure you can guess why. On October 29, 2015, the AFL made an announcement that changed the way the finals would be played. Announced that between the final round of the season and the first week of the finals, there would be a week off, a bye round. AFL Chief Executive Gil McLachlan's words said, AFL has introduced a bye week before the finals, so those clubs playing in September can have the best possible lead-in and preparation for the most important matches of our season. While he didn't say it himself, this was a direct response to some of the actions by AFL coaches in games of the final rounds of the season. In 2010, having already wrapped up a final spot, Freo rested 8 players in the second last round for their trip to Tasmania, seeing them smashed by 116 points by Hawthorn. Freo beat Hawthorn in a final 2 weeks later. The Dockers did the same thing about 3 years later when they were in 3rd, and they couldn't go up to 2nd or fall to 4th. So Freo saw it as an opportunity to rest half their team and ended up losing to 16th place St Kilda in Melbourne. While the AFL put integrity rules in place after that game, the final straw was North Melbourne and yes, Freo again in 2015. North made 9 changes, Freo made 11, and both lost by over 40 points. Now, should sides be allowed to do this? The AFL clearly do not think so, thus the pre-finals bye was created so every side received a week off. Michael Gleeson of The Age wrote, "The bye will stop the embarrassment of finals-bound coaches patronising the competition and being condescending to fans by fielding seconds teams. And I totally understand that your Supercoach team could be screwed in your grand final. But in my opinion, if you had such a good season that you're in a position you can rest players, why should you not be allowed to do it? Freo have long plane rides every second week, I think they're justified in resting some of their players if they have won enough games. The AFL saw it differently, and the way sides were resting players disrespected the sanctity of the season in their minds. And from that perspective, the plan has worked. Mass restings are basically a thing of the past, and the best players play right up to round 23. But as I touched on previously, this bye led to the vanishing of the advantage for qualifying final winners. Take Brisbane, who won their first final in 2020. By winning that final, it meant that between September 19, when they played their final round of the home and away season, and October 17, with their prelim final, they just played the one game. Is one game in 28 days the best preparation for a sudden death final? I don't know. While it is debatable how direct the link is, there is no denying there is a correlation of some sort. Now you may be thinking that is a good thing. The finals have become more open and anyone can beat anyone. I'm sort of the other opinion though, that there should be an advantage to sides who did well during the year and winning their first final to help them claim the ultimate prize. I don't want the home and away season to be rendered irrelevant, but I don't actually think an unfair situation has been presented. The concept of fairness to me is a really problematic topic. Like, what is fair, and is the AFL really fair in itself? Remember that this is the code that, until the pandemic, played the grand final at the same venue every year, irrelevant of who is playing. And it's not like the FA Cup final being held at Wembley every year, as the MCG, the grand final venue, happens to be the home ground of several clubs. Situations such as 2017 can occur, where the higher placed side in Adelaide is forced to play the MCG, Richmond's home ground, in the grand final. And let's be honest, that's not really fair. What about the AFL not letting Geelong play their home finals at their proper home ground down in Geelong? That's not really fair either. And going back a little bit, the AFL moving the Lions down in 2004 to play their home preliminary final against Geelong at the MCG for contractual reasons. That's just not fair either. And compared to these three things, I'd argue that simply introducing a pre-finals bye is not anywhere near as intrusive or compromising. All it has done is actually provide a better opportunity for losers in the qualifying final to bounce back. And some could easily argue that's a good thing. Now it is 2021 and the AFL have announced that they've done away with the pre-finals bye. However, the bye has been moved to the week before the grand final, which has given players like Stephen May and Cody Waitman time to recover from injuries that they may not have had before. It'll be interesting to see whether they go straight back to the pre-finals bye for the 2022 season. If they scrap it, what will stop sides resting players once again? But maybe the AFL will love this big week of build up before the grand final, sort of like the anticipation towards the Super Bowl. However, if they decide to reinstate the pre-final bye, make sure you keep an eye out for what happens to the winners of the qualifying finals. Will it revert straight back to the pattern we have seen since 2016? Or was that small sample size just misleading us? In 2021, without the pre-finals bye, while Melbourne won their qualifying final and smashed Geelong to make the granny, but Adelaide fell short, continuing the trend of the past few years. No matter which way this trend continues into the future, I'm pretty intrigued to see what happens.